After completing revision C, we have decided that we missed a few things, changing it over to a weldment. For example, this would become an weldment drawing where we identify parts with a bill of material that would look very similar to an assembly drawing. So we added on the 1/4 inch fillet welds. You've read through the welding section of the book. But normally when we weld something on, we would weld a stiffener or a gusset on rather than a stiffener. So the gusset would have a flat like this over here where the 0.75 vertical dimension is. There would be a flat on the top as well instead of just coming sharp to that point. Okay, it'd be a lot easier if we just had a flat gusset coming out here. Now that means that this piece is a welded piece. This gusset welds onto this other piece here. Well, if that were the case, those are two separate pieces being put together at one time, making it a single piece. So unlike an assembly, it won't come apart once we've done the weldment. So a weldment drawing, you typically dimension the part and the actual assembly all in one drawing instead of making different detail drawings. So this would become a weldment primary view, and this flat here would be called off, but also you would have to call off the individual parts. So let's take a look at one. You have your fillet welds, which were supposed to be 1/4 inch, and when I go to machine the block on the bottom, the end mill would leave a fillet over here and over here, so you would have an 1/8 inch fillet in this corners, 1/4 inch fillet, whatever fillets you use. Now, the only problem is this gusset, if you were to draw that gusset and try and get it in there, it's going to have that square notch and it's not going to fit in the radius. So we got to chamfer off this edge so we can just easily slide this up and fillet weld this on both sides. Okay, so you'll have to add in a chamfer here, radius that part that we're going to machine out, and then weld this stiffener gusset onto it. We want to make, this is actually not correct. We want to make this flat up here, that 0.5 dimension here should be the same on that line right there. That should be 0.5 as well. Okay, we'll make them equal for a stiffener. And this becomes, let's make this a 100 here, because now that it's a weldment, it's a lot easier to have numbers rolling in and out if you go to the 100s instead of just starting at 1 and counting to 10. Okay, so you want to start off with the dash 100. This is the weldment itself, and then dash 2 will be the base piece, and dash 3 will be the stiffener that we weld onto this with the 1/4 inch fillet weld. So you want to call out all the changes we're making for the final change to revision D. This general note is supposed to be above the title block. This bill of material is normally above the title block, but I would allow it to go down here below. Okay, this is a ANSI drawing, so if it's an ANSI drawing, we want to make sure we have two-place precision on our dimensions, and we're calling off the parts So this is the dash 200, the dash 300. The dash 100 is the weldment itself. The dash 200 really should be the base. The dash 300 would be the gusset. If it labels it that way, it labels it that way. I'm not too worried about it. So we have to balloon. The first balloon here is for the ISO view, the weldment. This balloon is for your base. This balloon is for the stiffener, which actually didn't look right now that I'm thinking about it. The base would be the 200, and the gusset would be the 300, because he's calling off this is number 2, the gusset number 3. At which point you would have to call off the dash 200 and the dash 300 on each of the 4 views. It's ballooned one time and then labeled off on all the other views. Read your assembly chapter in the print reading book for clarification. So here's your dash 200, here's your dash 300. You got the Rev D here, you got the Rev D note here. We should have a Rev D note here, Rev D note for this fillet weld. So you missed some of that. We'd have a Rev D here and a Rev D here. A Rev D by all these balloons because we've added that. These are all new. A Rev D here and a Rev D here. And we switch the gusset from a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch. If we get too skinny of a part, it might just melt away on us or get warped. Okay, so we're going to thicken up the part for the stiffener, and that's pretty much it. This will be the final drawing, final revision, so you'll have a nice drawing, being able to illustrate to others, hiring managers, that you've done revision drawings. You can show them that you've got this down. Remember, what we're supposed to do is add my initials now, make this a little bit bigger, but you'll have a reference that people can see that you're actually learning how to do drawing revisions, which would be the first thing you get to do when you get a job. All right, hope this helps to get this piece built and done. With it being the final version, we'll need all our checklists complete. So, you know, the only other thing I didn't mention, when I open the 3D data, this is most likely an assembly because we started it off as an assembly. But in reality, it would have to be a detail. Okay, so this is pad 1, this is pad 2, and then your holes and your pattern of your holes. Okay, and the more common technique would be to create a new part body, and then you add that part body into it. So you probably have an assembly again, so just leave it as your assembly. And I'm fine with that. I just want you to be aware, if you went to a tooling group and you are doing weldments, you normally do not separate the pieces like assembly pieces and then put them together, because the weldment will be welded together, and once that happens, they don't come apart. So we leave it in its final state in a single drawing rather than an assembly drawing, which in some ways is easier to manage. So I think it's a good technique to practice and learn. That concludes this demo for the final revision for your weldment drawing.